We have 6 flagship phones from 6 different brands right here, and I want to test out the night modes for video and in photo too. There's a lot of differences in these phones. Some give you night mode on the ultra wide, some don't. Some even give you night mode for the selfie camera too, so we'll test everything out. We have the iPhone 11 Pro, the Galaxy S20 Ultra, the Huawei P40 Pro, the OnePlus 8 Pro, the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro, and the Redmi K30 Pro. Video at nighttime from smartphones still really isn't very good on any phone. They just don't really have enough light. These 3 phones do a decent job overall. Let's switch out the P40 Pro for the OnePlus 8 Pro. You can see the field of view change because the P40 Pro records video off its ultra wide lens as standard, whereas all the others film off the main lens. Xiaomi tends to push up exposure across the board when it comes to low light conditions, but on this occasion it didn't do it. I guess there was enough light overall that it didn't feel the need to push up the exposure. Seeing them all side by side here, as I said, I don't think differences in video are as big as some of the differences in photo just because of the way video is taken. It tends to be fairly noisy and mushy pretty much no matter what phone you're using. Coming to a really classic example of what night modes are used for, this is the normal photo mode on all the phones. The first thing I notice is just how incredibly dark the S20 Ultra is compared to all of the other pictures. This is in normal photo mode though, so let's switch over to night mode on all of them. You can definitely see there are some big differences in exposure and colors between the night mode and the non-night mode. Just take a closer look and see the full picture on some of the phones. The iPhone does have a night mode, but it usually picks automatically the exposure time, which was 3 seconds on this occasion. The S20 Ultra is very, very dark. It doesn't seem to have brightened up the foreground. It seems to be exposing for the lights in the background. But compared to the iPhone and certainly the P40 Pro, P40 Pro stands out for me. It is just so good looking. We know that the P40 Pro is famous for its night mode, and for me, it's just shot a really good looking image. So much detail and dynamic range between the dark foreground and the light background. If we switch out the S20 in the middle, which is very dark, for the OnePlus 8 Pro, again, you can see the OnePlus has done a really good job in exposing for the foreground and the background, and I think it's done a better job overall than the S20. The S20 just seemed very dark. If we switch out the two on the left for the Xiaomi and the Redmi, I think the Xiaomi and the Redmi both have done a really good job in night mode off their main camera. There are some slight style differences when compared to the P40 Pro, but overall they've done a really, really good job in exposing for that dark foreground. The night mode has absolutely been nailed on pretty much all of the phones except for the S20. Putting the S20 back in, it just sort of missed the mark on this occasion. However, it really hits the mark on a different occasion later on in the video, so we'll get onto that in a minute. As I said before, video is just almost impossible for smartphones. The sensors aren't big enough and there just isn't enough light. What is interesting to see though is just how the phones try to expose and push up dark parts or are happy to leave the image dark. The iPhone is most representative of how the lighting conditions were actually when I was there. There really wasn't any light at all except for that light in the background. The S20 Ultra is somewhere in the middle, and you can see the Mi 10 Pro is just trying to brighten everything. It's pushing the ISO up, making everything brighter, but it is introducing a bit more noise too. I can see noise and gain, ISO noise in all of these. There just isn't enough light. But anyway, it's interesting to see the style differences and how the 3 phones do deal with these very low lighting conditions. Let me know which one you think did it best. If you think keeping the image darker or pushing up the exposure with ISO is a better way to do it. Still photos though are a completely different story. The lighting conditions here as opposed to that short video weren't dissimilar. There was virtually no light and my own eyes could not read the small writing on this sign. It was too dark. As you can see, all of them have done a really good job here. The Huawei P40 Pro again stands out for me. My eye just goes towards that one. There is such an amazing amount of dynamic range in the photo, and there's a really unique look that Huawei gives its phones in night mode. The S20 Ultra on this occasion in the middle has done a much better job at exposing the dark parts and the light parts. The iPhone's done a very good job and kept it very natural, but the iPhone night mode doesn't stand out as much as some of the night modes that you get in Android phones, I think. So switching out the S20 Ultra and the iPhone for the Mi 10 Pro and the OnePlus 8 Pro. The Mi 10 Pro doing another good job here. I think Xiaomi do a really good job with their night mode most of the time. The OnePlus 8 Pro actually looking a lot more like the iPhone than the other Android phones, and I've noticed that on a few occasions. Their style seems to match the iPhone more than a lot of other Android phones. 3 phones out of the 6 have night mode on the ultra-wide camera. These 3 phones do not. The iPhone, the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro and the K30 Pro. And it's looking kind of dark and it doesn't really stand out. But look at the incredible, literally night and day difference between having night mode on an ultra-wide camera. These 3 phones look completely different and look really amazing. They did a great job. The amount of detail, the color, the dynamic range, the lights, absolutely everything has changed for the better on these 3 phones. You can just see the massive difference it makes using night mode. It's just dark here and there isn't much detail. There's a lot of noise. Switching over to the S20 and it is like a completely different scene. The S20's night mode on the ultra-wide camera doing an amazing job here. The P40 Pro's night mode is completely different though. The colors are completely different. There definitely is a yellow tinge to some of it, and that may be because of their RYYB sensor. It's got a great exposure, but definitely different colors. The OnePlus 8 Pro looks a lot more like the S20 Ultra and adds in much richer colors. It's really pleasing on the eye, this one. And there, as you can see, the Mi 10 Pro, no night mode, it's muddy and it's messy, and the same on the K30 Pro, which is a very, very dark exposure. No night mode, no dynamic range. Without a doubt, these 2 are my favorite pictures of the bunch. The S20 Ultra and the OnePlus 8 Pro absolutely nailed it. These are just amazing shots, can't get any better from these 2. More big differences when it comes to the selfie cameras. We've got the iPhone here, which I think did a really good job compared to the Mi 10 Pro and the K30 Pro, which look a little bit more noisy. And I think the colors, especially my skin tones, have been lost a little bit. And certainly the background in both of those phones is a little bit darker than what we see on the iPhone. These 3 phones have done a really good job here, in my opinion. They've kept skin tones, they've kept some detail in my shirt, and they've kept the exposure and lighting of the background. Overall, I think they've performed pretty well. The iPhone versus the S20 is a tough one. I think they actually both took a good picture, even though they look slightly different and have a slightly different style. I quite like the photos on both. The S20 also has a night mode on its selfie camera, which this phone is, and compared to the iPhone, it's just almost the same. It does have a slight red tinge to it, but it's amazing how similar these 2 photos look from those 2 phones. The P40 Pro is trying to lighten and brighten up my skin tones, which for me, I think looks a little bit washed out because of my skin tone as compared to the iPhone skin tone color. The P40 Pro does also have a night mode, which is this one. I think the exposure's changed a little bit, but the overall style stays the same. The OnePlus 8 Pro doesn't have a night mode, but I think this selfie is really good as well. Done a good job in the lighting conditions, so yeah, I like that one. The Mi 10 Pro seems to be struggling with the background. It's slightly dark compared to the other phones, and also my skin tones are a little bit washed out as it's trying to lighten and brighten my skin tones. So as always, let me know which phone you think did it best on all of these different night mode tests. Subscribe for all the latest tech news and videos. That's it for now, but I'll see you in the next one.